Before we begin, let's go into finding a comfortable position for yourself and letting your body gently settle into with ease. And if it feels natural for you, softly close your eyes and take a slow, deep, intentional breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And you release out, you release a calming and full exhale. Now, with your next inhale, invite gentle awareness of openness and courage into your body. And with exhale from your mouth, softly release any tension, letting go any weight you have been carrying. Take a couple of breaths in through your nose, inviting openness and courage, and releasing with your exhale any weight or tension that you've been carrying. Now bring your awareness inwards and notice any familiar emotional patterns or cycles that have surfaced lately. Without judgment, gently acknowledge these cycles. Recognize them as an attempt by your inner self to protect you from past hurts or pain. And with compassion, honor the intention behind these patterns, even if they are no longer serving your highest good. And as you breathe in, invite understanding and compassion toward yourself. And with every breath out, begin releasing those patterns, sensing them gently loosen their hold. And visualize a soft, warm light filling your chest area, symbolizing your reclaiming of your self-worth and inner strength. And let this gentle light grow brighter with every breath, expanding outward and dissolving old limiting beliefs and emotional barriers. Feel a sense of clarity and readiness, knowing that by acknowledging and understanding these patterns, you begin the powerful journey of healing and transformation. Now take another deep breath in, feeling grounded, calm, and centered. And when you feel ready, slowly bring your awareness back to the present moment, gently opening your eyes, carrying this renewed awareness and compassion for our session today. Now, our session today is Break the Toxic Cycle, Heal What Hurts for Good. So what we will do is we will spend about 15-20 minutes in the beginning to understand what means toxic cycles, how does toxic cycles get formed, and also the process of healing for good. How do you go forward? And I will use part of my own experience in the example as well. And then we'll prepare for an IFS session. And today what I will do is I will do combination of both IFS and Water Fairy sessions. So if you've been here in the previous two sessions, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't been here, it's first time, don't worry, it's okay. Just see if you can surrender and follow the session. And then at the end of the hour, we'll open up for any Q&A for individual needs or sharing that you may have. So a toxic cycle is a repeated emotional or behavior pattern that continually brings a person back to pain, frustration, or discomfort, despite your genuine efforts and awareness to change. It feels like being caught in an endless loop, returning again and again to the same distressing emotional places, even when consciously wanting to break free. And let me acknowledge that many of us, including myself, even after doing a lot of self work, still find ourselves stuck into those emotional cycles, some of them toxic, which are recurring patterns of behavior or feelings that cause pain. Now, these cycles usually originate from experiences or emotional wounds formed during early part of life, during childhood, or significant past events. When someone faces pain, neglect, rejection, or trauma, they instinctively develop certain coping mechanisms to protect themselves emotionally. And at the time, these behaviors make sense. They help the individual avoid further pain or emotional harm. That's why they are called protectors. For example, a child who consistently experiences criticism might learn to achieve perfection at all costs. Back then, praise or acceptance was conditional on performance. And over time, this protective response can become a harmful pattern of perfectionism, which then causes exhaustion, anxiety, or in many cases, burnouts. Another person might repeatedly find themselves drawn into relationship with emotionally unavailable partners. Early in life, perhaps they experienced emotional distance from caregivers, learning that love felt uncertain or scarce. And though harmful now, these relationships recreate a very familiar dynamic pattern from the past. Now, these cycles persist because the patterns formed initially to keep you safe become deeply ingrained, often unconsciously repeated. Even when these behaviors now cause emotional pain, such as loneliness, self sabotage, or chronic dissatisfaction, or sometimes some form of physical pain and disease, they continuously go on precisely because they feel familiar and known, despite their harm. For example, someone might notice a habitual pattern of withdrawing during conflict, perhaps early in life. Conflict led to abandonment or punishment, making withdrawal as a logical protective response. But in adulthood, withdrawal creates isolation, reinforcing loneliness and thus perpetuating the toxic cycle. So it's very important to understand that toxic cycles aren't sign of weakness or personal failures. They are deeply rooted in emotional patterns that once were protective but now keep on stuck in pain or distress. And recognizing these cycles clearly and compassionately, compassion is important here, is a crucial step. Compassion means you're not judging. It's a crucial step towards healing and creating meaningful and lasting changes. Now, how are these toxic cycles formed? When we talk about toxic cycles, we mean repeated emotional patterns of behavior that started way back as a way to cope with pain, but not trap us in ongoing suffering. In my own journey and through working with many others, I have realized these cycles almost always. Early emotional wounds, when someone experiences emotional wounds, especially in childhood, their mind instinctively finds ways to protect them. I worked with someone whose parents were constantly criticize her, and she learned very young that the safest way to avoid emotional pain was to stay silent and invisible. And now that's a pattern that she does at work and in a professional life. Formation of protective patterns. So initial helpful coping behaviors become automatic responses, being wired deeply into how someone interacts with the world. This person I worked with carried her silence into adulthood at work or in relationship. She repeated these, she repeatedly struggled to speak up or assert herself, even when necessary, resulting in feeling overlooked and undervalued. It's the same person I was working with. Familiarity creates comfort. So these patterns continue because even if painful, they are very familiar and predictable. And they somehow, even if they sound absurd, but they somehow offer an unconscious sense of safety in pain. Another person that I worked with, because of a very unpredictable and abusive household as growing up kid, anger became his protective mechanism to reclaim control. And even as an adult, his automatic response when he was feeling vulnerable or criticized was absolute anger explosion. And that, of course, created conflicts and something he repeatedly said, I don't understand why I get burst of the anger, till, of course, he worked with this familiar pattern and overcame it. Often these emotional cycles run subconsciously, of course. People react automatically, driven by old beliefs, wounds, without conscious choice. Somebody I worked with found herself repeatedly choosing partners who neglect her emotional needs, mirroring her childhood experience with emotionally distant or unavailable parent. One of her parents was absolutely missing, and second, much less available. And each new relationship unintentionally repeated her original pain, reinforcing a belief that she wasn't worthy of a real care. So toxic cycles form from past emotional injuries, turning early as coping strategies into then becoming a habitual unconscious response and patterns. Even though these responses initially protected you or us, they can become harmful they usually become harmful in adulthood and trap us into this loop of pain and neglect and suffering. Now, understanding this compassionate truth is actually critical towards first step of healing. What we usually do is we judge ourselves and don't look at it compassionately, and hence we do not have access to the what happened and the protector itself. So, process of healing for good. When we talk about truly healing emotional wounds or toxic cycles, we are speaking about a journey, one I've actually personally found to be very gradual, compassionate, deeply liberating. And I always say this in these sessions that this is a process where you have to give yourself all the love and compassion as you go through this journey. It starts with something powerful and gentle, which is awareness. And by noticing and gently accepting your emotional reactions without judgment, you create a space for understanding and change, which is what we typically do in these sessions here. Now, awareness and compassion, why are they important? Healing begins simply by recognizing and compassionately observing this pattern. You'll always see me talk about curiosity and compassion, because these two emotions allow your protector to be able to speak up because he's not being judged. When I realized that my repeated anger or withdrawal wasn't because I was flawed, but because something inside me was still hurting, I could approach my struggle with kindness instead of shame. The turning point came when I stopped labeling myself as an abused in childhood person. I used to say that a lot many years ago, and I stopped saying that. And instead recognizing that these reactions were actually an attempt to protect myself from earlier pain. I had the fear of being both abundant and being unsafe. Listening to your own story. So true healing requires you to genuinely listen to yourself, gently acknowledging what emotions or past hurt were underneath the current reactions. And it was about it will be about finally facing those deeper wounds with empathy, with compassion, rather than avoidance. I remember clearly when I used to have intense anxiety about trusting people. Uh, I used to overdo by working with everyone and pleasing everyone, and also in relationship, I had this exactly same stories, and this all goes back to my earlier part of childhood. And by gently acknowledging and validating my own experiences and going through it and saying to myself that this was genuinely painful for me back then, I've more forgiven myself and others. When I could do that so clearly, I started to feel the relief and compassion rather than being in the place of panic or anger. Now, one aspect is creating safety within. So real healing involves creating internal safety. It means learning to become a reliable source of emotional support for yourself, nurturing truth within and trust within. When you reassure your anxiety or hurt feeling that it was okay, that you can handle difficult emotions now, you will begin to break free from reactive cycles. In so many of my people I work with, when they share something like reassuring the fearful child within and telling them something like, it's safe now, you are no longer alone because I am with you, something inside starts to change dramatically. You find strength and you start to make changes that could be changes in relationship, changes in workplace, changes in your health condition. That's how it starts to happen. And transforming old beliefs into empowering truth. True healing also means updating old beliefs that kept you stuck. Instead of believing, I'm unworthy, if you gradually learn to see clearly that those old beliefs were created from your past hurts and not present reality, slowly this will allow new ways of relating to yourself and others to emerge naturally. For example, I shifted from believing I'm only loved when I please others. This used to be my story. To understand I'm worthy of love just as I am. And this subtle shift changed my relationship profoundly, including the work I do here. And that's something I was saying to myself. If I feel safe within, I can hold a safe space for all of you. Okay, so here we go. Time to work. Now, to prepare for today's session, I want you to think about a toxic pattern in your life that you're ready to acknowledge, understand, and let go. Start with that. You can also use a past wound as a way to get to your toxic pattern, if that's a way to do. So use both of these questions to see what comes up for you first. And write it down, and we'll take a couple of minutes for you to take note, and then we'll get into the work. Okay, here we go. So just find a comfortable position. Gently allow your body to settle in. And you can keep a pen and paper next to you if you want to take notes. And begin by centering yourself with your breath. So take a slow, deep breath through your nose and exhale fully from your mouth, through your mouth. Inhale through your nose deeply and exhale fully through your mouth. And you're grounding yourself, your body, in the present moment. Now visualize a safe and comforting space. Think about a person or a place or a moment in your life, event or moment, where you felt completely safe. And if you don't have one, you can also create with your imagination. And see yourself there. Notice the sensation of warmth, security, and calmness gently surrounding you. Now, from this place of safety, bring to your awareness a behavior, emotional pattern of fear, or anything that you just thought about as a cycle that you would like to work on. Take a moment to visualize yourself in a situation where this cycle showed up. And as you connect with this pattern, gently notice what you experience in your body. Perhaps a tightness, heaviness, or tension in certain areas. And see if you can just acknowledge these sensations without judgment. Just notice, how do you feel towards this sensation? What kind of feeling you have, emotion that comes up. And see if you can become curious to understand deeper. If any critical or judgment voice jumps in, just ask it to gently step aside, allowing you to remain in this place of curiosity for a dialogue. So focus back into the sensation in your body. And we'll refer to as a part of you. So ask with curiosity. Ask a question. The question is, what do you want me to understand about why you are here? The sensation in your body. So be curious and notice what you hear. See if you can acknowledge what you heard. Ask it, what is your intention for me? Stay curious. See if you can acknowledge what you heard. Still staying curious. Ask it. So you're asking to the sensation in your body, what are you protecting me from? What are you afraid would happen to me? And take a moment to understand. You would hear what is afraid would happen to you. That's what is protecting you from. Ask it, what is your biggest fear for me? What is that big fear that you're afraid would happen to me? The biggest fear for me. Take a moment to hear that. Stay curious. See if you can acknowledge that. And maybe you feel a bit of compassion as well, because you understand its biggest fear for you. And acknowledge that. Saying, I understand this is what you're protecting me from. Ask it, when did you first come into my life? How old was I? And what was happening at that time that made you appear in my life? And stay curious and compassionate to hear the answer. When did you come into my life? How old was I? And what was happening at that time in my life? As you deepen this connection, see if you can gently reassure this part that you are here now, listening with compassion, not judgment. And ask it one more question. What would you need from me to feel safe enough to let go, to trust, to relax your hold, or to change the role you play in my life? So, what would you need from me to feel safe enough to let go, to trust, to relax your hold, or to change your role in my life? See if you can acknowledge what you heard. And as you continue with this interaction, see if you can express gratitude to this protective part for its effort to keep you safe, acknowledging that it acted from a place of care, even if its methods are no longer helpful. And you understand what it needs or what needs to happen for it to feel safe. See if you can do that. Acknowledge gratitude. And ask this part to name itself so you can come back for future conversation. Any name. There's no judgment on what names comes up. And ask this part, now that you have a name, if it's willing to give you permission to work with the younger self, the age that when it all started, to help and understand deeper and work with that younger sage. If it's resistance to give permission, ask courageously for clarification as it to what is it afraid would happen, and let it know that you are in a safe place. Now picture yourself standing beside a beautiful water body. It may be a calm lake, a vast ocean, or a gentle flowing river, whatever makes most connection with you. So picture yourself standing there and feel the serenity of this place within you. As you observe and be in this place or water body, invite the younger self to come along with you, the one who was in pain. Invite him or her to be with you. There's no need to force or control anything. Just simply notice what arises. Just notice, how do you feel towards this younger self standing next to you, with you? And see if you can make a bond and a connection with that younger self from a place of compassion for her, for what, or him, for what he or she went through. Don't judge it. Just look at it from a place of compassion. Ask the younger self to share with you all the events and all the things that it went through, that it happened to him or her. And what you do is just listen to it, whatever he or she says, with compassion. See if you can acknowledge and continue to hold the younger you in compassion, and ask the younger you if he or she is ready to release all the pain and anything else that is holding it back. Remind the younger self that he or she is going to be in control with the process and that it can pause it at any time. Now see if you can shift your focus back to the water body. And imagine a water fairy emerging from this water body, a pure loving figure. Connect with the water fairy, feeling its compassion and unconditional gentle support for you. Now invite the water fairy to help your younger self to release all the pain and the burden that he or she has been carrying into water, trusting in its ability to transform them. Take the time. You're inviting the water fairy to help the younger self to release all the pain, all the stories that it told you, and take it out of its body into the water and transform them for highest good. Notice the space that it opens up within you And now allow the water fairy, to be your and the younger self's guide, whether as a bright presence, a soft feeling, or a knowing. And if it feels right, silently ask for any clarity or insight about the burden that the younger self has been carrying and just released. And see what you receive as response without judgment. So you're asking to water fairy to be your guide, to be a bright presence for you and the younger one, and ask for if there is any clarity or insight from the burden that the younger one just released. Let the younger one know that you will be back, and you will connect back to have follow up. So start to gradually bring your attention back with your breath. Notice your chest or belly rising and falling. Notice your body supporting you. And take a moment to deepen your breath and connect to the present moment. And take a moment to reflect within you what you experience. And if it resonates well, you can also start to write down any insights. Thank you for being open to this process. Even small act of release can spark meaningful changes. As you move forward, remember the sense of renewal that emerges when you let go of what no longer serves you and you begin to break free from the cycle. Just commit to yourself that you will repeat this a few times so so that whatever remains will get resolved or clarified to you so that you can be free.